Before proceeding, viewers are advised to exercise caution. The following is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is a verbatim reproduction of testimony in federal court in the case of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press. We have all been drawn into this unpleasant and rather awful situation involving one individual who lacks any sense of class or dignity. In his heart, which is dark and cold, there is nothing good, only darkness and a kind of depravity that corrupts his inner world. That is how his personality can be described. It is corrupt, unpleasant, and repulsive. Yesterday, when everyone gathered in court, this man completely lost control of himself. Instead of behaving with dignity and calm, he caused a real scandal. He threw papers left and right and yelled loudly at his lawyers who were trying to explain the situation to him. The reason for this outburst of anger was the public support expressed by well-known presenter Megyn towards Cassie. This act by Megyn angered him greatly. The situation became so tense and unpredictable that the judge had to temporarily clear the courtroom of spectators to calm things down. Even security guards intervened and tried to restore order to prevent further outbursts of anger and chaos. Overall, it all looked very bad and created an unpleasant impression, showing how far this man is from normal behavior and self-control. Megyn made a statement that really caused an uproar in this case. She publicly supported Cassie, expressing her opinion that this support was an important and courageous step in the fight against injustice. Megyn emphasized that truth and justice must be on the side of those who have suffered, and that one cannot turn a blind eye to obvious facts. It was this open stance that caused a storm of emotions in the man himself. He took Megyn's words as a personal insult and a threat that called into question his reputation and power. This support really became a turning point in a case that rocked Hollywood. Previously, many thought it was just scandal for scandal's sake, but now the issue has taken on a much more serious tone. The main and most important question is whether this man is a criminal at heart, or more precisely, a mafioso who controls and manages complex criminal schemes. Although many are already convinced that he is depraved and repulsive, proving this in court requires more than just accusations. Specific violations of the law, evidence, and testimony must be presented. And it seems that this is not so difficult to do. Facts and documents are already emerging that could shed light on his criminal activities, and this could turn the whole case around and put an end to the question of his guilt. The defense in this case is trying to present the charges against their client as something normal in show business, as if they were just quirks or even habits of those who work in this industry. They say that group sex, strange sexual practices, and all kinds of unusual entertainment are kind of the norm for such people, and that the law should not particularly interfere here. In their opinion, it's all a private matter and there are no serious violations of the law. However, Cassie Ventura strongly disagrees. She openly states that after she broke up with this man, a terrible incident occurred. Rape. Cassie recounts in detail how she developed post-traumatic stress disorder after the incident, a condition that seriously affects a person's mental and emotional state. Her painful memories of the incident were so strong that they caused her to contemplate suicide. And most importantly, if a woman did not consent to such actions, then all the excuses of the defense, such as "it's normal" and "it's accepted in show business," simply lose their meaning and seem pointless. Without consent and respect for the individual, these explanations do not stand up to criticism and cannot serve as an excuse for criminal acts. Cassie shared another important and very difficult detail: her drug addiction, which, according to her, was forced upon her against her will. She claims that she was literally forced to take drugs, which is, of course, a very serious accusation. The defense, as expected, is trying to refute these facts, arguing that everything is not as it seems, that Cassie is exaggerating or even lying. But the very fact that she claims she was forcibly pumped with drugs and subjected to violence speaks to the scale of this story and the seriousness of what is happening. Yesterday, the court was on edge. The atmosphere was so tense that it felt like anything could happen at any moment. I particularly remember the moment with Diddy, a man who usually behaves very calmly and reserved, but yesterday suddenly exploded. His face changed, contorted with rage and despair. He threw papers around and yelled at his lawyers, who were trying to calm him down, but nothing helped. At one point, he showed something on his phone that clearly made him extremely angry and upset. He kept repeating phrases like "she's lying" and "everyone is against me." But this rage was not just anger. There was real fear in his eyes. It was a fear that is rarely seen in people like him, a fear that showed he understood how serious the situation was and that it could end very badly for him. It was real, raw fear, and it added even more drama and tension to what was happening in the courtroom. When the situation in the courtroom reached a boiling point, the judges realized that it couldn't go on like this. Diddy's emotions exploded, and the courtroom turned into a real battleground. To prevent chaos and ensure safety, the judges decided to temporarily clear the courtroom of all spectators, journalists, and bystanders. This was an unusual step. Courts are usually open to the public, but the situation here required immediate action. Security guards surrounded Diddy on all sides. They literally formed a human corridor around him so that no one could get close enough to capture the emotional outburst on camera. The security guards understood that such a video could go viral and lead to an even bigger scandal, so they did everything they could to prevent that from happening. As for Diddy himself, everyone who knows him well admitted that they had never seen him in such a state. In everyday life, he knows how to control himself, remains cool and collected, and appears calm on the outside. Even in the most difficult and personal situations, he usually does not lose his composure. But this time it was different. A completely different side of him was revealed to everyone. The reason for this sudden breakdown was related to a notification he received just minutes before he lost control. A message came to his phone with a link to the latest episode of The Megyn Kelly Show. In this episode, Megyn openly supported Cassie, speaking out against Diddy, and even showing new evidence that cast doubt on his honesty and innocence. It was like a blow below the belt. Public support for Cassie from such an influential figure as Megyn Kelly was very painful and devastating for Diddy. When he saw the message and started watching the video, his appearance changed instantly. His gaze became sharp and tense, his face contorted with anger and despair. The calm facade he had built around himself over many years crumbled right before everyone's eyes in court. Instead of a confident and self-controlled man, there was a man gripped by fear and panic. Fear of losing control of the situation, fear of losing and being exposed. This moment was a turning point not only for Diddy, but for the entire case. The judges and those present realized that the situation was going beyond a normal court proceeding, which meant that things would only get more serious and tense. Diddy's image, which many had previously viewed as that of a balanced, calm, and innocent person, is now completely destroyed. His behavior in court, with his scandalous outburst of anger and panic, has severely undermined people's trust in him. People who may have had doubts before have now seen the real side of his character. His team of lawyers and PR people are now busy trying to smooth over the aftermath of this incident and restore at least some of his reputation. But to be honest, there is no way to undo the behavior he displayed in court. It has left a deep and serious mark on the perception of his character. As for the future, we can expect the situation to become even more complicated. New witnesses will undoubtedly be called to testify, including celebrities who have not been mentioned before. Many of them may be forced to testify, which means they will have to look the defendant in the eye. A man who is now openly accused of violence and control through fear and threats. For many witnesses, this will be a difficult ordeal because coming face to face with such a person is not easy. Ultimately, this case could reveal many more dark and hidden details, and the court and the public will be watching closely every new step and every new piece of evidence. This whole story is becoming a real test not only for the defendant, but for everyone involved in the process. This time, Megyn Kelly completely abandoned her usual political rhetoric and decided to focus on the case of Cassie versus Diddy, devoting almost her entire show to a detailed analysis of the scandal. Using the legal experience she has gained over the years, Megyn carefully examined all the evidence presented. She pointed out obvious inconsistencies in the defense's arguments, showed where their version of events did not match the facts, and noted patterns of behavior characteristic of the accused. The very patterns that are often found in such cases and may indicate guilt. In one of the most powerful and memorable moments of the broadcast, Kelly looked directly into the camera and, addressing the audience, said that as a woman and a mother, she simply could not remain silent when the evidence was so clear. This moment really made a huge impression on the audience. People felt that this was not just another piece of gossip or sensational news, but the sincere, deep anxiety and shock of a person who had come face to face with a terrible truth. Megyn wasn't just telling other people's stories. She was genuinely shocked by what she had discovered and what was now becoming known to the whole world. This gave her show extra weight and seriousness, showing that this wasn't just about rumors, but a real investigation with real and very important consequences. Megyn Kelly's show revealed details that had previously been largely unknown to the public, and they were truly shocking. Among them were text messages and financial documents which, according to her, showed that Diddy had paid Cassie money that was not reflected in official contracts. This looked like hush money, an attempt to hide the truth and silence any accusations. The report also included interviews with domestic violence experts. These specialists confirmed that the cycles of violence described by Cassie, with periods of rage, threats, and attempts at reconciliation, were typical of such cases. They also analyzed surveillance camera footage, which they said confirmed the defendant's outbursts of aggression and moments when he tried to smooth things over, which is part of psychological manipulation. A question Megyn asked other well-known media personalities was particularly resonant. Why are they still silent when the evidence is so clear? She directly accused some major news networks of deliberately covering up the scandal, possibly due to pressure or other reasons. The report also criticized Diddy's music empire. According to insiders, this empire was built not only on talent and business success, but also on fear and intimidation of people within it. Megyn mentioned cases of threats to artists, conflicts, and the departure of several close associates, which reinforces the impression of internal instability and hidden problems in his circle. In addition, the program revealed information about large payments to people who signed non-disclosure agreements. This further confirmed suspicions that there is a network of cover-ups and intimidation around this case, designed to hide the truth. All these facts together paint an extremely negative picture of Diddy, which contradicts his previous image as a successful and well-balanced person. And judging by all appearances, it was Megyn Kelly's show that was the last straw that caused Diddy's public breakdown in court and made the case even more high-profile and complicated. The worst thing for him is not what Megyn Kelly has already said and shown on her show. This includes the facts and evidence that she has confirmed and made public. But what is far more threatening to him is that she is only hinting at even deeper, hidden, and possibly shocking details that remain behind the scenes. Megyn has stated outright that she will continue to follow this case and has promised to publish new information as it emerges. This means that the case is far from closed, and we can expect new revelations and exposés that could seriously damage Diddy's reputation even further. This is a wake-up call for him. No matter what has already happened, something bigger is coming, and he cannot afford to relax or hope for a quick resolution. In addition, the situation is complicated by the fact that new faces are appearing on the list of accusers, including some very well-known people. For example, singer Dawn Rochard from the popular music group Danny Kane. Unlike Cassie's case, her claims against Diddy are being considered in a civil lawsuit rather than a criminal trial, but they are no less serious. Dawn claims that she was abused by Diddy. Her account includes allegations of deception, deprivation of food, and even sexual assault. This suggests that the allegations go far beyond a single incident and involve a whole chain of events and people. This expansion of the circle of accusers is a very bad sign for Diddy, because more and more evidence and stories are emerging that corroborate each other and paint a coherent picture. These are not just isolated incidents, but systematic violations and abuses that may have been going on for a long time. As a result, the pressure on Diddy is mounting, and he finds himself at the center of an increasingly large and complex scandal. Public attention, lawsuits, new allegations. All of this suggests that his problems are just beginning, and that even more serious consequences can be expected in the near future. That is why it is very important for him to try to cope with this pressure and preserve at least some of his reputation, but this will be extremely difficult. Correspondent Caitlin Becker reported live on the progress of the trial currently underway in Manhattan. Today was an important stage, the selection of the jury. From the very beginning, the judges began to weed out those who openly expressed a bias against Diddy. For example, some people were excluded because they said outright that they disliked him or thought he had too much money to receive a fair punishment. There was even a case where one of the candidates admitted that he planned to smoke marijuana during the trial. And of course, he was immediately removed from the jury list. All this shows how hard the court is trying to ensure objectivity and fairness in the process, despite all the emotion and public outcry surrounding the case. At the same time, Cassie Ventura, Diddy's girlfriend and the main victim in the case, did not make any public comments for a long time. She stayed out of the spotlight, avoided social media, and preferred to remain silent. But after Megyn Kelly's show, her position began to change. For the first time after a long silence, she responded on social media, liking several posts supporting Megyn Kelly and her investigation. One of these posts was captioned with the words, "The truth always comes out." This gesture, though small, is very important. It shows that Cassie is on the side of those who are fighting for the truth to come out. Her legal team has also noticeably softened its stance. Previously, they had made almost no public statements, but now, for the first time, they have expressed their gratitude to everyone who is telling the truth and helping to shed light on the situation. At the same time, they carefully avoided mentioning Megyn Kelly's name, perhaps so as not to associate themselves too directly with her show, but the message was clear. They support the idea of openness and a fair investigation. All these events together demonstrate that the case is gaining momentum, and an increasingly clear picture is emerging, where the truth is beginning to take on greater significance. One of Cassie's close friends shared an important and touching moment from her life that happened during Megyn Kelly's broadcast. As Cassie watched the show, she sat in complete silence, not saying a word, but tears streaming down her face. It wasn't just an emotional outburst, Juarez, it was a moment of deep realization and inner transformation. For a long time, Cassie lived in the shadows, afraid, shy, silent, perhaps doubting herself and her abilities. But Megyn's show, where everything was laid out openly, honestly, and with legal backing, made her feel that her story was finally being heard. This inner shift gave her the support and motivation she had been lacking. After that moment, Cassie began to behave differently, especially in closed meetings with lawyers. Before, she may have been afraid to speak openly or revise her testimony, fearing that she would not be understood or supported. Now, filled with new confidence, she began to revise her testimony, provide clarifications, and participate more actively in the case. Her voice became stronger and her position more resolute. This is an important step for anyone who has experienced trauma and found themselves at the center of such a large and painful process. The support Megyn Kelly provided with her reporting has caused a real shift in public opinion. Until recently, many preferred to remain silent or even doubt Cassie's words. But now, everything has changed. People have begun to openly express their support, both celebrities and ordinary citizens who previously might have simply passed by this story. Particularly important were messages of support from 7 prominent women, including Diddy's former colleagues and associates. They did not make public statements, perhaps out of fear of repercussions or for personal reasons, but sent Cassie private messages of support and encouragement. For Cassie, this was not just moral support. It was a sign that she was not alone in her fight, that there were people who believed in her and in the truth of her story. Such support helps her stay strong and keep moving forward despite all the difficulties and pressure. The day after Megyn Kelly's broadcast, an important event took place in court. Cassie Ventura's lawyers brought a large, well-sealed envelope with a new set of documents. Most likely, it contained fresh evidence that could significantly strengthen her case. This coincided with Cassie herself becoming noticeably more confident. She was ready to speak openly about some incidents that she had previously preferred to keep secret, perhaps out of fear or pressure. Now, feeling the support of the public and with new evidence, she was no longer afraid and had become more determined. Public support is playing an increasingly important role in the case. In the courtroom, the jury not only listens to official testimony, but also senses the mood and general attitude of the public toward the situation. Everyone knows that a real battle is raging around this trial, and public opinion lends weight to Cassie's words. This changes the atmosphere in the courtroom and can influence the jury's perception. At this time, Diddy's reaction seemed fairly predictable. In his public apology, he did not say a word to Cassie. Rather, his words seemed more like an attempt to appease the general public than a sincere expression of remorse. His apology seemed like a prepared speech, devoid of genuine emotion and understanding of what had happened. In addition, in an interview, one of the witnesses described in detail how he had repeatedly witnessed Diddy's violence towards Cassie and other women, including the mother of his child. According to him, this violence was not only physical, but also included coercion to use drugs. Such testimony significantly strengthens the accusations and adds to the scale of what is happening. After Megyn Kelly openly supported Cassie and presented her investigation, a real panic began in the entertainment industry. Several major celebrities and artists canceled their performances and appearances on various shows. They gave various official reasons, But everyone understood that behind this was a desire to distance themselves from the scandal surrounding Diddy. This added even more tension and showed that the case was taking an unexpected and serious turn. After the case gained widespread public attention, noticeable changes began to take place on social media. Several well-known A-list celebrities quietly unfollowed Diddy. They did not do this publicly, but simply stopped following him, which was immediately noticed by loyal fans and the media. This silent distancing sent a loud signal. If even stars of this caliber don't want to be associated with him, then the situation is serious. Companies and organizations closely associated with Diddy and his business empire are holding urgent closed-door meetings. They are trying to understand how all this will affect their reputation, finances, and relationships with partners. There are already signs that some of the partners want to step aside to avoid being caught in the crossfire. This is creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and stress within the entire structure. Legal experts, who were previously cautious and reluctant to make loud statements, are now increasingly and openly calling the evidence against Diddy convincing and credible, whereas previously various shows tried to sidestep the case or gave it minimal attention. It has now become the main topic of discussion. Everyone understands that this is not just a high-profile scandal, but a serious legal proceeding with real consequences. A real crisis has begun within Diddy's team. They are trying to convince influential people in show business and the business community to speak out in his defense, but many refuse, fearing they will lose their reputation